Welcome to the Bag Maker's Workroom. I am Chris with Simply Classic, and today is Thursday, February 20th, 2025. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you so much for joining us this evening. Tonight we're going to be talking about, or our theme is from hobby to small business, and we have a lot of information to cram into this hour. So we're going to get started right away. But before we do continue, I want to remind you that we go live every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're unable to join us live, no worry. Watch the recording on our YouTube channel at any time. Make sure that you subscribe and click the bell icon notification to be notified of future videos and live streams. Best part of live streams is being able to interact with all of you. So use the chat box to ask any questions you have, and I'll answer at the end, time permitting. And we may run out of time today. We have a lot to go over. So I see All Things Stephanie says, hi, everyone. We have Diane, hello from Florida. And then, oh, Cheryl. Hey, Cheryl. Hello from cold and snowy upstate New York. I haven't seen Cheryl in a while. We missed you. So glad that you are all joining us this evening. So every live stream, we talk about the Simply Classic Scoop, and we have some exciting news to share with you. So we first want to remind you that next week I will be in Chattanooga. We are doing a workshop there on Friday. The class is actually sold out. We're doing the Simply Classic Clutch in Italian leather. And then on Saturday, we are making the Bircham. There are still a couple of Bircham classes available. So if you are going to be there, go ahead and stick around for the Bircham. We'd love to see you. We also want to remind you that September 12th through 14th, we'll be in Sacramento for the Bag and Sew Expo. Expo tickets are on sale now. I'll be teaching 4 classes. On Friday morning, I'm teaching the Julie, and I will say that that class is just about full. I got the student list today, and I am so excited to see so many familiar names on that list. So I cannot wait to meet all of you. The Saturday morning, I'll be teaching the Simply Classic Clutch. Saturday afternoon, I am teaching the Addie, and it is a bag by Purse Crafters. You can see it here. And then Sunday afternoon, I'll be teaching the Sorella, and I think the Sorella is almost full as well. So you can register for classes on the SAC Bag and Sew Expo website. And then I will invoice you sometime probably in March or April about your kit fee. You'll be getting invoiced directly from us for that kit fee. Or, of course, if you're taking the Addie class, then Purse Crafters will be emailing you. It's Sherry at Purse Crafters. And then, super exciting, we are announcing a bag making retreat in Ruskin, Florida, which is in the Tampa area. And Barbie Taylor from Jeannie's Designs and I will be teaching the retreat. So we're going to be at the Holiday Inn in Ruskin. It's going to be October 23rd through the 25th. So we're just giving you a save the date right now because we're still trying to finalize the cost for the retreat and all that kind of good stuff. So just stay tuned, and we will tell you more as soon as possible. So tonight we are going to, of course, like we always do, go ahead and show you some perfect pairings, and we're going to group that with our featured products tonight because, again, we have a lot to go over. So we usually pair some faux leather and leather with thread and lining. And I know sometimes when you're shopping online, it's really hard to tell what goes together. And unfortunately, our website has some limitations, so we can't do certain things. We love to show you featured products and things that go together, but unfortunately, we can't do that right now. But we're working towards maybe doing that in the future. But this segment is really to help you determine what does match. So we have a request from one of you today. Diane emailed me because she's making a sienna and she wants to use the dark purple faux ostrich, and she asked which lining and thread that we would recommend goes with it. So we're going to switch to the overhead camera and we're going to take a look at the ostrich. So our first thought when we looked at this ostrich was that the Tex 45 grape would work. And I want to show this to you. You can see that it does not go at all. And as I've mentioned before, a lot of times darker threads are what you want to use. So in this case, this purple is a lighter color. So what I would suggest for this ostrich is actually the black. Okay, the black is the darker color. It is actually some black in this purple. So we have this, of course, in both the Fusion 45 and also the 70 color. And then for lining, we suggest using this eggplant colored chambray by Tilda. Okay, so I really love that Diane wrote in, and I would love to do more of these requests. So if any of you are watching have questions about what you think or what you want to know goes together, just email either me, which is chris@simplyclassic.net, or you can email share@simplyclassic.net, because that's our email for the Bag Makers Workroom. We'll go ahead and do some pairings and show you on the next live stream. So we try to do a faux leather and a leather. That was obviously our faux leather. We're going to go ahead and show you what we think a leather pairing would be. And since we started with the purple thread, thinking that was going to work, we decided to start there. And what we decided was that this royal purple leather would actually pair really well with this great Fusion 45 thread. So it looks a little bit lighter in this in this camera, but really when you take the thread and you put it down on the leather, you really cannot see it at all. So it's really a great pairing. And then for lining, we suggest the Crisscross Gray by Tilda. We think that this would be a really great contrast for a lining of any bag you make. It could be absolutely gorgeous. Okay. All right, so we are going to move on, and I want to talk about today's episode. It is from hobby to small business. And usually on these live streams, we talk about the process of bag making, techniques and styles and handbag history and all kind of things like that. But today's going to be a little different because we're going to talk about the business side of things. So if you're thinking about starting your own business or turning bag making into a career, this is going to be a great episode for you. We're going to approach things a little bit differently tonight, so here's the plan. First, we're going to go over some really important logistics to consider when starting your business. Then I will share an interview with Tiffany Tanasse, the owner of Test Patch Studio. She is a brilliant bag maker and entrepreneur, and she had a lot of great knowledge to share. And then after that, we're going to talk a little bit more about the realities of running business and some helpful advice. And then, of course, we'll end the episode with our live giveaway and our Artistry Avenue, just like we always do. We'll be featuring some bags made by you, our customers. So before we begin, I want to acknowledge that not everybody watching wants to turn bag making into a business. And, we get that. We understand that. And if bag making is a creative outlet for you and you prefer to keep it a hobby, then that's completely valid and stick to that. However, I still encourage you to stick around because there's a lot to learn here, even if you're just curious about how a small business operates. So a lot of what we're talking about today will be things that I've learned over the course of my career. So to give you some context, I'd like to tell you a little bit about me. You know me as Chris, of course, the owner of Simply Classic, but I had a whole other career before this. And basically, for 30 years, my husband and I ran a CPA firm here in Augusta. We did a lot of small business consultation, taxes, all that kind of fun stuff. And after that, we sold our practice in 2022 and Simply Classic took off. Now, I started Simply Classic a few years before that, but really once we retired, sold our practice, I was able to dedicate full time to Simply Classic, and it's turned into what you see today. So now that you know a little bit about my background, we're going to dive in. And the first thing we want to talk about is small business basics. So let's talk about what it takes to start a business. It is a big undertaking. If you don't structure it correctly from the beginning, or if you don't have the resources to really commit to it, it can create a lot of challenges down the road. But at the same time, don't let that discourage you. It might sound corny, but you are capable of whatever you put your mind to. And that doesn't mean it's going to be easy, and there's only so much you can control as a business owner. You don't have to be an expert in everything, and just remember that. But you do have to commit, and you need to be willing to adapt. Okay? So before you sell your first bag or launch a website or quit your day job, these are some essential things that you do need to consider. And let me just go ahead and give you my disclaimer here that I'm coming from the point of view of a CPA. So I'm going to be talking about finances, but of course, don't take this as tax advice. You always want to talk to your own CPA or your own accountant because everybody's situation is different. Okay. So we're going to first talk about the legal and financial setup. So there are certain things that you need to do when you start a business. And the first thing is you need to hire an accountant or a CPA. So let's talk about the difference between an accountant and a CPA for those of you who don't know. Accountants and CPAs go through the same education process. Okay, they both have degrees in accounting. Typically, though, the CPA continues on, usually gets a master's degree in accountancy, and then further sits for the Certified Public Accountant exam. Usually, it's a 2-year process, at least. Sometimes you can cut it to 1 year, but usually it's 2 years or more that you study for this exam. You pass the exam and hopefully pass, and it's difficult. I mean, it's not an easy thing. But what the difference is that as a CPA, we are required to present financial statements, for instance, in specific formats. So we have rules that we have to follow, and there are things that we have to do in order to follow the codes and the state guidelines and the federal guidelines. Okay, so if you're looking at 2 sets of financial statements that are prepared by 2 different CPAs, they should be set up the same, and they should have the same terminology, and you should be comparing apples to apples. All right, you also are going to need to hire an attorney. And this isn't about getting sued or anything like that. This is about getting structured properly. So when you start a business, you obviously are going to want to form some type of entity, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But if you have a partner, then there's certain agreements you're going to need to have in place before you start. For instance, a buy-sell agreement. Okay, that's a really important one. First right of refusal is a really important one. And those things are the agreements that the attorney is going to be able to advise you on, and the attorney is going to be able to draw up for you. Another thing that we recommend is that you register with your state or as either an LLC or a corporation. And obviously there can be, some tax differences between the two. So you want to, again, go ahead and talk to your tax advisor about which is best for you. But this is done at the state level. What it does is it does afford you some possible tax benefits, okay? But also, it kind of legitimizes you as a business. When you put LLC or INC after your name, then people know that you have gone the extra step to actually be a legitimate business and pay the fees and do what you need to get everything done properly. The other thing is you need to obtain a federal ID number. Now, a federal ID number is kind of like a social security number for your company. So understand that once you create a company and that company gets an employee identification number, that company is as separate from you as I am from you. So you are your own person. You have your own social security number. I am my own person. I have my own social security number. We're separate people. Same thing happens with your company. You have a company. It gets a federal ID number. It is a separate entity from you. Okay, so you own the company, but it is not you. It is a separate entity. Super important to understand that distinction. The other thing you want to do is develop a relationship with a banker because you're going to need to open a corporate bank account. So you're going to need to use the proper name of your entity as well as the federal ID number to open that bank account. Of course, all business transactions need to go through that bank account. So we're talking about income, expenses, of course, anything related to that needs to run through that bank account. And then you also need to get set up on some kind of accounting software. So everybody has heard of QuickBooks. Everybody knows QuickBooks. QuickBooks kind of has the market, share here. But there is another program that is kind of making headway. It's called Xero, and it's Xero, Xero. And it is kind of gaining some strength. And from what I understand, it's a really good program. So don't just blindly go into QuickBooks. Maybe check out your options there and see which program is best for you. And then, of course, you need to have some kind of insurance agent. And again, the insurance is not just for the purpose of, oh, I need insurance in case I get sued. There are so many different types of insurance. So if you have employees or people in your business, maybe contractors, you're going to probably need to get some workers' comp insurance. If you have a separate building, where you have contents, whether it be equipment or merchandise, then you want to make sure that you're insured for the contents of that building. Whether you rent or own, that's a whole nother thing of what kind of insurance you need. So talk to your insurance agent and make sure that you are covered properly. Now, of course, all of these things cost money, so you need to make sure you have enough capital to cover all of your expenses. And I can say from experience that most small businesses, that's probably not right, a lot of small businesses that we dealt with were undercapitalized. And what that means is they just didn't have enough initial capital to kind of get things going. So you really want to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row and that you need to fund your business properly in order to take it to where you want it to go. So let's talk about where you get that funding. Our automatic thought here is that you go to a bank. And while that is an option, understand that if you go to a loan or to a bank for a loan, you're going to need to have probably some collateral to get that loan. So if you're just starting a business and maybe you don't have that much collateral, a bank might not be your best option. Another option would be you putting your own personal money in. So if you have some savings, then a lot of times that's a good place to start. And then sometimes you can get loans from family members or investment groups that are willing to loan you the money to get your business started. So check out all of those options, see what is available to you and what's best for you, and make sure you have the cash and the funding to get things going. So even though having the funding to work with is important, there's a lot of expenses that you might not anticipate in addition to the ones that we've already talked about. So, the basics, of course, we mentioned, and that's the CPA, the attorney, the software, insurance, all that kind of good stuff. But that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. So let's talk about some of the other expenses that you need to plan for. And the first is materials, supplies, and equipment. So obviously, and we're going to use the example of, let's say you make bags to sell them. Then you're going to need a sewing machine. You're going to need either a heat press or irons. And then you're also going to need supplies to make those bags. So understand that you want to get the best value for your money. And what that means is that if you are a legitimate business, you have gone, created your entity, you have your federal ID number, you've gotten your sales tax or what number or whatever else you may need, then a lot of times you can buy wholesale. And typically wholesale is half of retail. So for instance, we have a wholesale program. We do ask that when you apply, you provide us with a copy of your business license and or sales tax certificate. And then there are minimum buy-ins. You have to have a minimum that you buy for the year. But it is a huge savings. And in addition, it's going to give you better margins. And let's face it, you're going into this maybe for passion, but also obviously the goal is to make a little bit of money. So, just understand that you're going to need, that's a very real thing, and you're going to need those things. You're also going to need shipping products. So if you are shipping, you don't have a brick and mortar, you actually are, selling online, you're going to need things like boxes, you're going to need packing materials, you need labels, maybe some kind of branded sticker or tape or business card or something to stick in the package. Another thing is you are going to need probably at some time along the road payroll and or contractors. That is people to help you. So when you look at a task, you need to decide, should I hire an employee to do this? Should I work with a contractor, or should I do this myself? And you can only do this for so long by yourself. If you're going to grow and you're going to make the business bigger, you're going to need help. You always need to be understanding that you have to work at your highest level. And what I mean by that is you need to look at what makes you money. So for instance, in my situation, I usually make money by teaching classes, by doing YouTube videos, by writing patterns. Those are the things that make Simply Classic money. What doesn't make Simply Classic money, if I do it, is rolling faux leather or packaging hardware. Those are things that I can delegate to somebody else to do. And by me doing that, it does not help Simply Classic at all. So you need to understand what your highest level is. You need to be working at that highest level. And then you need to hire people to help you in other areas. Upwork is a great resource. It is a website, and you can actually find a lot of great people there to help you with social media, to help you with video editing, and all types of contractors. I actually use Upwork and have a video editor that I use. She lives in Virginia. I live here in Georgia. I've never met her, but she does a great job editing my videos. And what I'm able to do is send her the files. Technology is very good. And she's able, now that she's been working with me for a while, she knows exactly what I want. She gets them edited, sends them back within a few days, and it saves me hours, literally hours of video editing. And that's not my strong point, and that's not what I need to be doing. And if you're going to open a brick and mortar, let's kind of go down that road, then of course you're going to need to pay rent. But even if you're not going to order a brick or open a brick and mortar, you may, need to rent a space. I mean, let's face it, some space can go very quickly, and so you may need to order or pay a rental storage unit or something like that to store your products. So you need to figure out, are you going to be in a home studio? Are you going to be outside your home? Do you have enough room for your supplies to store your merchandise and to pack your orders if you're going to be working online? And it's amazing how when you start getting all of these products in, how quickly space goes. The other thing you need to be thinking about is branding. So you need a logo and at the very least, some really basic marketing graphic experience. So with all the online tools that there are and with YouTube tutorials, you may be able to do this on your own. But make sure you understand what file formats you need and the basic principles of logo design. Upwork is a great place to get started with this. I did not design my own logo. I actually had somebody do it for me. It was actually a local firm that did it, and we did change it a little bit over time, but I did not do it. I had the idea, communicated that to the appropriate person, and then they ran with it. If you are going to sell online, you're going to need a website, which means you're going to need to pay for your domain name and your website software, like Shopify or Wix. Or you need to pay a website designer. You can't do all that yourself. I mean, unless you have a background in website design, it's probably something you need to hire out. So just understand that there could be a pretty big expense. There are some really user-friendly softwares out there like Wix and Shopify where you can kind of start, which is great, but understand that it could get complicated really quickly and you might need some help. Another thing you could do is use a third-party app like Etsy instead of creating your own store. But of course, there's fees associated with that too and some restrictions. So a lot of times, even if you use Etsy, you're probably going to want to still have some kind of website to give your business some credibility. Marketing. You can do the basics of marketing for free. Okay, you just need to start a social media account and run with it. But understand that you're probably going to need an advertising budget, and you're probably going to need somebody to do regular advertising for you to help you with that. Just expecting to suddenly go viral, it's just not realistic. It's kind of like being a football player and thinking you're going to go pro. It happens, okay, but it's not an everyday occurrence. So it costs money a lot of times now to even verify your profile on a lot of sites. And then in terms of software, you're going to need some kind of email marketing platform. You're probably going to need some kind of tool to help you collect customer reviews. And all of these things cost money. So for instance, with our Wix website, we use Wix, as I said, it's not, a lot of the things you see on there are add-ons. So we have a basic website fee that we pay, and then we have to pay extra for all these little add-ons here and there. And, it adds up. If you're selling your bags locally, let's say you just want to stay away from websites, you might want to do some kind of local advertising, whether that be radio, newspaper. A lot of times people sell bags at the craft fairs or markets, but you're going to have to pay booth fees for that. You're going to need some kind of signage. You're going to need some kind of fixtures, whether it be tables or grid walls or something like that. You want to make your booth appealing. You want to make, when people walk by, you want to get people to stop. And if your booth looks terrible, they're not going to stop. They're going to keep walking. So whatever it takes to make your booth appealing is what you need to do. And then, of course, we want to talk about paying yourself. And this is one of those areas that it can take some time to get there. You need to make sure that you're getting paid for your work. And I know a lot of us, especially when it gets to artists, we do this out of passion, and that is great. But you need to know your worth, and you need to make sure that you don't undercharge for the bags you make, if that's what you choose to do. We've talked about our pricing spreadsheet in the past, so take a look at it. We've actually linked it in the description below, and it's going to kind of help you determine maybe what you need to be charging for your bags. But understand that reality and, you know, the real world sometimes or you know, are different. I mean, what we want and what is real sometimes is very, very different. So even if we think we can get $250 for a bag, you know, that might be our hope and our wish in a perfect world, but reality might dictate something a little bit different. That spreadsheet's just going to help give you a guide to tell you about where you want to get to when charging for your bags. Okay, so part 2 of this tonight's live stream, we want to show you an interview that we did with Tiffany Tanasse. She is the owner of Test Patch Studio. She's located in Washington State, and I actually met her when I went to Puyallup last year. She's got a great model, and we really wanted, or business model, and we really wanted to interview her because we thought she had a lot to add. So we're going to go ahead and show you that interview right now.
Tanasse, and I'm the owner and founder of Test Patch Studio. And I live in the South Puget Sound in Washington State. It's about an hour south of Seattle. And I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. In my opinion, it was a really great place to grow up in the late 60s and 70s. And I was inspired by a lot of creativity happening there. My mother was an artist, and she, I think, was ahead of her time. She did very large, bold work, abstract work, and figurative work. And my dad had a hardware store, a really cool one before Home Depots and Lowe's. He had a really cool tool bag there that I think was made in San Francisco with a leather base, leather handles, and canvas. And I'll never forget that bag. But I think I really inherited my creative streak and entrepreneurial spirit from both of my parents and my grandparents before them. And then moved up to Washington State for college and worked with kids and families, completely different career for 6 years before I had my kids. And we moved back to the Bay Area for my husband's graduate school. I worked in our family business for 25 years and then got back to my creative roots.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you're kind of like me. You had a career before, and then you decided at this point
Exactly.
get back
Yes.
to your passion, right?
Exactly. That's what it's all about. It's a perfect time in life to do that.
So what inspired you to start Test Patch Studio?
Well, it's hard for me to talk about Test Patch Studio without telling you about my very first entrepreneurial endeavor back in the Bay Area when my husband went to graduate school. My daughter was 3, and I invented a toy. And that's where I learned how to sew. I brought it to market, and it kind of made it in a big way. So it was called the daddle, which is basically a saddle for a dad or a parent to wear and a kid to ride. You know, I designed this saddle that had a horsey blanket and a plush top and a handle and stirrups and a backpack straps for a parent to wear, and the kid would get on. And I sold it in my play group, and Amazon.com was brand new. And so I posted it on this new section of their website called Z Shops, where little merchants could post their items, and people would buy them. It was a lot of fun. And Jeff Bezos was Time Magazine's Time of the Year Man of the Year in 1999. And he was on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno and brought 3 products from his Z shops, and the daddle was one of them. Of course, we had a lot of orders, and I was sewing these in my garage. You can imagine it was hard to keep up. So they called me the next day and said, gear up because you're going to be our poster child to promote our Z shops. So I had to figure out how to get it manufactured locally. And, I had to look in phone books and bang on factory doors but got it manufactured. And then the bubble burst and a lot of .coms folded, and Amazon had to lay off a third of their employees, and we never heard from them again. So that was a flash in the pan. So eventually we sold the company, and my husband, we moved back to Washington, and he opened his practice, and we had that business. And but I miss it. It was business 101, and it was creative and problem solving and exciting, and it still exists today. It's called the Daddy Saddle. But that really taught me how to sew, how to solve problems, how to start a business. It helped me for our business, and it's helping me now because at this stage of my life, I really wanted to get back into something creative.
Yes. Yep. That's kind of what when it's in your soul, it's hard to get away from it.
Absolutely.
What was the first thing that you sold in Test Patch Studio, and like what kind of challenges did you face when you first opened the store?
So the first thing I sold were cards and wrapping paper, and I had a launch. So that was exciting. So initially there was a build up to a launch, and it was exciting just filling those first orders. I think the most challenging part for me back then was just learning everything. Everything that I did, I had to learn and figure out, and especially a big gap, just with technology, since I was in business last time, and email lists and marketing and Illustrator and Photoshop. And but I just love the challenge of learning new things, but going slow, doing one thing at a time, and moving forward. And also being online is sort of a lonely place.
Yeah.
So that was challenging. So it's nice to have a storefront. It's only a year old right now.
What kind of decision process do you go through to decide what the next product's going to be?
Yes. Well, I did start with the paper, but I needed to expand. And I also, I think being in person and having a brick and mortar store has allowed my business to grow. It's also been really nice to have a community of people to interact with, but I can't just sell cards here. And I also, since I opened, really wanted to grow the business into doing textiles and bags and pillows and home goods. It's still evolving, but I add things to round out the store and what I offer at different price ranges as well. So people can come in and not just buy a more expensive handbag, but they can also get a candle and a card and smaller things. But I'm just increasing my offerings and trying to stay focused at the same time, so I can add new consistent lines and keep up on my inventory. It's also passionate driven. I add what I'm passionate about, and I do marketing, so then I get to go sew.
So what marketing channels work for you?
I have an email list that I've had for a long time that is really, really pretty good. And I'm very consistent with that. It's once a week. And social media is, I'm on Instagram, which has been good. I'm still developing that and being comfortable connecting that way to my audience. So I'm trying to expand that as well. But it's been a good tool, and especially locally. I think I have a lot of local followers who are able to be in tune with what's new in the shop or what's happening in the shop right now.
Well, how would you describe your brand philosophy?
I would describe it as I just really want to offer lighthearted products to the world, and beautiful things, share art and share beauty, and offer something that isn't everywhere. There are a lot of box stores, and things are looking really the same. And so it's nice to get creative. Everything that I make is made in the studio right here. When people come into the store, they can see me making them, and it's just a little different.
People tend to go online first, and obviously you did, and we did as well. But when somebody's considering actually opening a brick and mortar store, what kind of advice would you give them on that?
Well, I feel like for my business, starting online was really good, and making the decision to do the brick and mortar was even better. I think that my business has increased. It's also my location is everything. I think it's really important to know how much traffic you're going to get. Um, and rent is real. So to be able to have different pillars of income for your business. So if you start online and can keep that traffic going as you open a brick and mortar store, I think it can become exponential. But I also think it's really wonderful to interact with my customers in person. I mean, I really connect with my customers that way, and they come back over and over again, and we will talk about handbags, or which one, or what would look good, or wow, you're tall, you can wear this really big one, or this one holds a lot of stuff, or the location, I think, is really, really important, and how much traffic you're going to get. I also think it's really nice that I'm able to produce in this store. So the slower months like January, I can just get ahead and work on projects and increase my inventory. So it's a dual purpose where I can work. It's a working studio, and people also come in. So I think that's the beauty about this place too. I do a lot of my prep at home. I have a nice big cutting table, and I still have a studio there and a sewing machine, but I have a couple of machines here. So once everything is all cut out, I can do the sewing here. Um, so that's how that works. It's a transition. I work at home and then bring it here and finish it off here.
And what kind of sewing machines are you using?
I have a serger. I have a Juki,
Mhm.
so it's still, a domestic. So I do feel like eventually I'm going to need to get an industrial machine. I have a Bernina, but I've been using the Juki a lot more for the
Okay.
bags right now, and it is pretty strong and works almost for everything I have. But every now and then it gets stuck over those big seams.
It must be like a Juki TL18, one of those
Yes,
straight
that's what it
stitch.
is.
That's what it
Yeah.
is. Well, very good. It's nice to know that those straight stitch machines really do a great job. Of course, Janome has one, Burnett has one, the Juki has one, and it's amazing to me how well they do so. Well, glad to hear that's what you're using. So did you start with the bag making pretty much when you opened the brick and mortar store?
I started just before, and knowing that I was going to open the brick and mortar store.
What's your favorite bag you've ever made?
Oh, well, that's hard because when I make them, they're my favorite, and then
Yeah.
I want to make another one. And materials, I really like to work with denim. I have a lot of high-end upholstery remnant that I've sourced, so I love to work with that and look around a workroom and say, okay, what can I make this bag out of? And I'm just starting to to bring a new line in that's your line, and I'm super excited about it, and using leather. And so right now the Fairhaven, I made a sample and gave it to my daughter, and I think it turned out great, and I'm really excited to bring these into the shop. So that's my favorite, and the clutch is also my favorite. I was quilted, and I've also had a lot of really positive feedback on the samples that I've thrown up on social media and shown people in the store. So people are really looking forward to having a new line.
That is fantastic. How did you hear about Simply Classic? I think we met in Puyallup, right?
We did. And it
Okay.
was a Sunday at the Sew Expo in Puyallup. And it was right before the end of the day. And I walked by accident, and I turned around and thought, what am I looking at? Amazing. This is amazing. And I started to see these bags, your sampled bags in different materials of fabric I have and fabric you have. Um, and I just fell in love right there. And it did take me a while to get to ordering your materials and your patterns, but I'm ready to bring it forth and add it to my store. So I'm really excited, and it's exciting working with you too. I feel like I know you better than you think I do, because I sew with you on your YouTube channel, and you're a wonderful teacher.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's part of my passion is I really want to pay it forward and teach people how to, I always tell people you can do this. just sit down, take it one seam at a time. And, it's a lot of it's straight line stitching.
Your patterns are amazing because I have designed all the other bags I make, which are just way more basic, but that makes so much sense. And I'm learning so much more about how a bag goes together. And your patterns are pro and they're very doable. And I'm really excited to use them. I have a lot of your patterns already and a lot of your materials. So I'm doing one by one. And for example, the Fairhaven, I know that my daughter loves cheetah print and I made the sample for her. So just looking at the materials and mixing and matching. And I think that's where I excel too, just sort of feeling where I want to take it. So we'll see, all the different materials and combinations that I'll come up with. Is really exciting to think about.
We get excited watching it come up on Instagram, and we love to see what you make. It's really amazing. So there are so many bag makers out there that really dream about turning their hobby into a business. And what advice would you give somebody just starting out or trying to accomplish that?
I would say just have the courage to keep moving forward and doing it and following your passion. And even if it's not easy, if you move forward a little bit at a time, and sometimes it takes time. And if it's not as fast as you want, it's okay. There's always tomorrow, and you keep moving forward and go for the next steps. And it's scary, but it's fun and exciting. And I would say to challenge yourself to work through, what it is that's scary or feels too big or too hard, and do one thing at a time. And it's never too late. I do want to say that, I am just about 58 years old, and it's not too late to start a new career. It's challenging, and I get more tired for sure, but it's rewarding.
I will say that the older that we get, the more we know exactly what we want in life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Makes it a lot easier. So how can we learn more about Test Patch Studio? Where can we find you?
I have a website, and it's testpatchstudio.com. And then for Instagram, I am at Test Patch Studio. And my storefront, if anybody is ever in Washington State, is in Tumwater, Washington, which is just outside of Olympia, Washington. And it's in a market building, which is really nice. There are restaurants here and breweries and a fish market, and it's a growing and up and coming place in Tumwater, Washington. So it's nice to have people come through, and I think that will get even better.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, Tiffany, we wish you the best of luck. We'll be watching you on Instagram, and we really appreciate you joining us today.
I do want to say I'm so excited to bring these to bring your patterns and your materials to life. So I'm looking forward to sharing that as well. And
Well,
thank you for all of your help and education. And wow, do you do a great job?
thank you so much. All right. Thank you.
You bet.
So we hope that you enjoyed that short interview with Tiffany. She is really has a good thing going there. And before we continue, we want to acknowledge that we've had a little bit of problem with the audio tonight. So hopefully we're making a couple changes, and hopefully that gets better. Okay. So we realized that we've had a few problems with the audio tonight. We just made a couple changes, so we hope that it gets better. So we apologize for that. Okay, so we are going to move on. And again, we hope you enjoyed that interview with Tiffany. She was so kind to do that for us. And we're just going to move on to part 3 here, where we are going to just kind of give a little bit more advice and maybe tell a few little lessons learned. So the first thing we want to suggest is that you understand your market. And what that means is that you need to know your audience, you need to know your own aesthetic, you need to know what makes you unique and who your ideal customer is. Now, those are questions that nobody can answer except for you. So just make sure that you maybe jot those down, ask those questions of yourself, and have good answers, because it makes a difference. Another thing I want to say is you need to stay adaptable. And what I mean by that is business is very dynamic. It never is standing still. You need to be willing to drop something, maybe a line that's not working, a bag that's not working, something that's not selling, and then do more of what is. And I'm going to give you an example of this. So, not in 2011, obviously, my husband and I had our CPA firm, and we 9/11 hit, and of course, everything stopped. And pretty much business stopped. People weren't forming businesses, right? I mean, basically the whole United States was kind of in a period there where everything was kind of crazy. Well, obviously, in our firm, we felt that. I mean, that's kind of part of being I think every business out there felt that. So what we had to do was to look for ways to add on services to our existing clients to make it work. So we kind of thought outside the box, came out with some things that maybe we hadn't done in the past, just to kind of make it through. And then, of course, once the dust settled and everything continued on, we were able to go back to, kind of our old model. But you need to make sure that you kind of go with the flow and change when you need to. Another thing is show up with confidence. So understand that how you represent yourself is how the public is going to see you. And that's true for both you as a person and for your company's branding. So just understand that you, however you want to be seen is how you need to present yourself. You are your own best asset. And what that means is you need to always carry a business card on you. You can sell your product better than anybody else, right? Because you know it. You need to carry your own bags. You need to share your knowledge and always look for opportunities to build relationships. You never know where the next piece of business is going to come from. Always keep learning. So continue to educate yourself, and not only about your craft, but also about how to run a business. It's not just about the sewing technical skills. It's also those obviously are important, but it's also just make sure you learn about like the history and context of the industry you're in. So that's why we talk about bag making history here. It's so much we can learn from how others do things. Understanding your way is not the only way. There's a lot of people who came before you doing things, and you need to learn from them, from their good things, obviously their rewards and the things that work for them, and also from their mistakes. Don't just look at the big names, though. Watch YouTube, read articles, talk to people in your community. If you have a challenge, don't just take one person's word for it. Hear different people's perspectives, and then see what kind of resonates with you, and then move forward. You want to automate as much as possible, because the more times you have to touch or change something, the more money you're spending. So think about this. If it's easier to spend a day cutting all your patterns out, and then the next day you sit at the machine and you sew all day, and then maybe the next day you work on marketing, do that. It might be more efficient for you to work that way than to cut, sew, market the bag. Cut, sew, market the bag. So just think about how you can manage your time. As a business owner, time a lot of times is all we have, and there's never enough of it. So time management is really essential. We all heard, the customer is always right, and customer service can make or break you. And that doesn't mean you need to just give in to everybody, but it does mean that you need to understand that good customer service is a thing of the past. You need to be responsive, and you need to treat people with respect. And, sometimes people get frustrated for whatever reason. And it maybe they're not frustrated at you. Maybe they're frustrated at a situation and they take it out on you. And sometimes it's hard not to get defensive there. But just, kind of take a step back, take a deep breath, and make sure that you treat people the way you'd like to be treated. And we're going to say, keep moving forward here. And what I mean by this is the worst mistake that you can make is not making a decision at all. People get hung up, and this comes from a lot of experience in dealing with small businesses for several years, is people have to make a decision, and they don't know what decision to make. And so they're trying to think about it, and they're trying to figure out what they want to do, and, I'm not sure, what should I do? And then they end up not making a decision at all. And that did more harm than making a decision, it being the wrong decision, and then adapting. So if you do make a decision and it's the wrong decision, don't beat yourself up about it. Learn from it. Okay. Look at the situation. Say, hey, how can I avoid this from happening in the future? And what can I learn from this? So don't let indecision hold you back. You will never get anywhere. All right. So to sum everything up, let's just say that running a business is challenging, but it's also incredibly rewarding. So if this is what you truly want, go for it. Okay. Don't let this episode intimidate you. Don't let this live stream intimidate you. I was just here to try to give you some advice, give you kind of some guidance. And just remember that you need to plan wisely, you need to stay adaptable, and you need to trust yourself. All right, we are going to move on to Artistry Avenue. And Artistry Avenue is where we feature bags made by you, our customers. Each week we share photos that were posted in the Simply Classic bag making community on Facebook or email to share@simplyclassic.net. All of our artists in Artistry Avenue will win a Simply Classic PDF pattern of your choice. This is open worldwide because, again, it's a PDF pattern. So if you feature your bag, you have 30 days to email share@simplyclassic.net to let us know which pattern you would like. So let's take a look at the bags that caught our attention this week. The first one is from Darlene D'Angelo, and she made this gorgeous birching. I love that she put a zipper overlay over the zipper pocket opening. That's not in the pattern, that's something she added. I really like that she did it out of the same material as the bag. It all blends in together and it's really a great bag. Good job, Darlene. The second one we want to show you is the Sienna, and this was made by Lisa Cox. Now, she made this out of our, I believe it's our shiny faux crocodile in black. And, I always love when you make changes to the patterns. And what she did was she added a slip pocket in the back for her phone. This is really a great pattern to do that. And I actually have a video on how to make that slip pocket on YouTube. So check that out. And then, of course, she used our slim thumb lock. And then this last bag is a bag by Jamie Sparkman. She made the little Leah, and this is a bag we don't see that often. It really caught our attention because we love the pattern, the pattern of her material. It's almost like a black leopard. It's really pretty. And of course, the Leah and the little Leah are both bags that hold water bottles. So they're great when you're going to craft fairs, when you're going to expos, or wherever you may be that you need to carry water, you can take it with you, even just every day. So we want to thank everyone for posting and just want to remind you that you need to go ahead and share your makes on the Artistry Avenue, or excuse me, on the Facebook group to be featured in Artistry Avenue, or you can post them or email them to share@simplyclassic.net. Okay, so we are going to give away 3 of our pricing sheets today. You're going to need to have either Excel or Google Docs in order to open the sheet, so make sure you have one of those programs. And these are digital, so there's no shipping involved, so therefore this is open worldwide. So if you'd like to win one of the pricing spreadsheets, type the word Excel, EXCEL, in the chat, and we'll have the computer pick 3 winners. So I'm not sure that we have any questions tonight, so I'm going to take a minute just to kind of remind you about a few things on our website. So make sure that you check out our events page regularly, as we are always updating that page with future things, events we're going to be at, expos, obviously the retreat. As we get more information, we'll be definitely posting there. We also have virtual classes posted there. And in addition, we also want to remind you we have a great resource section on our website. So one of the things that I get asked often is, where do you buy such and such? Where do you get this? And so if you go to the resource page, not only do we have things like an Amazon store and like the So Type magnets that I use all the time, but underneath there, scroll down a little bit, you're going to see we have all kinds of websites posted there as to where I get certain materials, both leather and faux leather related. Okay, so let's also tell you about, we have, unfortunately, and I hate to even say this happens, but sometimes our printed patterns have errors in them. And we hate when it happens. We're very disappointed in ourselves when it happens because we really go through a stringent test with our paper patterns, but sometimes there are errors. So I also want to tell you that if you go down to the bottom of the website, you're going to see we have a pattern corrections page. So if you did buy a paper pattern, maybe go there, check it out, see if the pattern's listed, and if it is, what the change is. The very back cover at the bottom, in very small letters, there is a little V1 or V2, and what that means is either pattern version 1, version 2. If you look at the back of the pattern you have and refer to that also on the pattern correction page, it'll let you know if there's any corrections in that specific version. Okay. All right. So we are going to see who won these 3 Excel spreadsheets. And the winners are Lady Pink Bags won, who is Mary Montez and Rebecca Rusdell. So thank you very much. We appreciate that all of you were on our live stream today. And if the 3 of you could email share@simplyclassic.net, let Shauna know that you won, then she'll go ahead and get a copy of that to you. If you could do that in the next 24 to 48 hours, that would be helpful for us. So I want to thank you for joining the Bag Makers Workroom tonight. We know it was kind of a different format. We hope it was really informative for you. Join us next week, which is going to be Thursday, February 27th, again at 7 p.m. And next week, I'm going to be in Chattanooga, but we will, of course, we're still going to do a show. It will be recorded. It's not going to be live, but I will be live in the chat to answer any questions. So I will be there. I'm just going to be there virtually. So we're going to be talking about spring trends, spring 2025 trends. We have got so many photos to show you. We're also going to continue with our history of Chanel. And so, I think it's going to be great. I mean, we ran through it the other day, and I love watching the runways and seeing what the trends are. Don't forget to submit your Simply Classic makes by posting in the Facebook group or emailing share@simplyclassic.net. That's also where you can send questions, stories, and topic ideas. So thanks again, everybody, for watching. And until next time, happy sewing.